Friday afternoon we all began arriving at base camp, which is 45 minutes away from our target area. A thunderstorm with high winds was coming through, so we took shelter and waited out the storm. The winds were gusting around 65 miles an hour and the rain was coming down hard. The storm passed quickly, and the sun made its return. We started getting dinner ready and talking about where to go tonight. Our spirits were high again and we were ready to go scouting. The main road that we were planning to visit was closed for grading, so we had to venture into some more unfamiliar areas. We came across a dirt road that wasn't gated off, so we decided to take a closer look. Due to the rain and high winds from the storm, we decided to park on the main road and began hiking in. With headlights and packs on, we began our quest. The road was muddy and wet, mountain laurel and hemlocks on both sides and a small stream on our right. We walked the road maybe quarter mile or so and the road began to incline. We stopped for a moment to listen and take in the area. I notified the group that I was going to make a whoop. Everyone agreed. I made the call and almost immediately we had a response. Several of us heard the response, and to make sure that it wasn't an echo, I made another call. This time no reply or echo. We all looked at each other in agreement. That could have been a reply. We stayed in this area for a few more minutes. 2 others in the group walked up the road to see if they could tell where the road would go. We hung around a little more and decided to head to another area. Back in the truck we talked about the reply and how we liked the location and that it would be good to return to look at during the day. We agreed to check it out tomorrow. We continued looking for other areas to scout. We found a dirt road that had several gated roads off it. We decided to look down one of the roads. We found a pond that had a path around it. We could see that there was a concrete dock that went to the middle of the pond. Of course we went straight to it. We all agreed this would be a pretty good spot to come and sit and therm around. You could hear frogs everywhere. One of our guys began to walk around to the right side of the pond. When he returned, he said that he thought he had heard footsteps in the far corner. This is another good area we need to check out further during the day. Back in our vehicles we continued. This road ends at a cemetery. We explored the cemetery, didn't see anything interesting. We decided to go back to the main dirt road and continue exploring. We noticed that the storm had blown down several trees on the road but nothing that we couldn't get around. This road seemed like it took forever to travel. It was rough with lots of switchbacks. We returned to the base camp around 2 a.m. in the morning. We discussed our findings and ate some snacks. Then we decided to call it a night. Saturday morning coffee and breakfast. We discussed where we needed to look today. We broke into 2 groups to cover more areas. My group was going back to the first road and then to the road the pond was on. We arrived at the first road. We got our gear together and began walking up the road. This time we were going to go further up the road. We had walked about 20 minutes up the road and an area caught my attention. And we stopped and saw a tree structure that looked interesting. We decided to investigate it. It was about 70 to 80 yards off the road to the right. After looking at the structure, it appeared that 4 of the 5 limbs that made up the structure were not from any trees nearby. They seemed to be placed there. Also, there was an arch within 20 feet from the structure. We spotted several things in the area that were suspect. We decided to go to the pond area and look around there. Heading to the pond, we decided to go to a road next to the pond where we found a field about 150 yards off the road. The field is about 10 acres or so, tall grass and a large fallen oak near the entrance. When you walk into the field to your right, you can see the pond probably 300 to 400 yards away. The woods are open, lots of animal tracks and a good place to therm. This is a good spot. We leave the field and go to the pond. Nothing unusual about the pond. We still think it's a good place to watch. We checked out the cemetery again and headed back to base camp to meet up with the others. Everyone relaxes for a while. We ate dinner and began discussing what we want to do tonight. The team decided to go to the field area next to the pond where we can make a fire and hang out and see what happens. Around 8 o'clock to 8:30 we head to the field that takes 45 minutes to an hour to get there. As we arrive, we begin getting out of our trucks and we hear an unusual sound, kind of like a gunshot and a crash. Everyone was asking what that sound was. We continued getting our gear together and began to walk to the field. Right before we get to the field, we therm the area to see if there is anything we might be able to catch in the field. No luck, the field was clear. We found a good area next to the fallen oak to dig a fire pit. We started setting up chairs and digging a fire pit. We got a fire going and several members began walking around the field to get the layout of the land. About an hour or so goes by and we haven't heard anything or seen anything. One of the guys brought a big speaker and I asked him to make some coyote calls. He set it up and plays a coyote call and we hear a good reply from a pack of coyotes. Several of the team members are seeing red and white lights out in the woods. One of the other members went out to the left side of the field about 100 yards away and started playing Native American flute music. It sounded good. We continued to see lights in the woods and the coyotes were coming in closer. We still don't know what the lights are, there are a lot of them out there though. The team member that was playing the flute music came back to the fire and said that he was hearing footsteps around him. We decided to send a group around to the pond so we could make some calls back and forth. They head out to the pond. After a few minutes we can see their red headlights at the pond through the woods. Two members walked down to the tree line to listen and observe the group at the pond. After just a few minutes, I saw one of the members at the tree line fall backwards and hit the ground. I thought she had just tripped or something, but she just laid there. The other member that was at the wood line and I began running towards her. She was laying there, eyes closed and motionless. We helped her up. At this point another team member had reached us and announced that he was seeing a shine off to our left. I moved behind and to the left of him. At this point is where I saw the figure looking around the bush toward the other two members. The other team member was talking into the woods saying, "Back off, sorry, we don't want to bother you," or something like that. I still see the figure at the wood line. We start moving back toward the fire and the member with me starts agonizing, saying he feels like he's being stabbed in the ribs. The closer we got back to the fire the better he felt. I saw the figure move back into the woods as we got back to the fire. The other member that was at the wood line said that he was looking at a figure in the woods right before she fell. Everyone was asking what happened. Over to my left I noticed movement in the woods and saw the figure again moving between two trees. I bring it to the attention of the team that I am seeing it again. Another member spots it and brings up his thermal and it doesn't show up on the thermal. I'm able to still see it at this point. During this time, the team from the pond shows up. They were asking us who was throwing rocks at them. They thought it was us. They told us about what had happened to them while they were at the pond. They arrived at the pond and noticed something being thrown at them. They thought it was us. One of the members of that team had walked over to the right side of the pond and had something run through the woods towards the road. That's when they heard the coyotes barking close to them, so they decided they were close to them and came back to the group at the fire. We told them that we had not been throwing rocks and that we believed it could have been a Bigfoot. We walked down to the wood line to see if we could see anything. There was a faint musky odor at the wood line. We looked around the area for a short time and decided that it would be best to come back in the morning so we wouldn't disturb any evidence that we might find. We decided that we would head back to base camp and discuss our experience of the night. While leaving the area we came across a large oak tree that had fallen across the road. This is the sound that we had heard earlier in the evening. We now must go the long way back to base camp, which will take a lot longer to travel. We arrived back at the base camp, and we talked about what we had experienced. This is the scenario that I came up with. Number 1, we called in the coyotes and Bigfoot heard and was curious. Number 2, Bigfoot came to check us out. Number 3, we sent the group to the pond. Number 4, it turned its attention toward the pond. Number 5, it threw stuff at the group at the pond. Number 6, it noticed that we were behind it. Number 7, it zapped Lori. Number 8, we spotted the eye shine then the figure. Number 9, we retreated to the fire. Number 10, it moved back into the woods. Number 11, we spotted again to the left. Number 12, it didn't show up on the thermal. Number 13, it moved back into the woods. Was it Bigfoot? Was it spirits? Ghosts? It's still unknown and we will never know for sure. But I can tell you this. It sure was an exciting night. One that I will remember for a long time.